Howdy, howdy, this is Mr. Potter. In this program, we're going to be talking about how to interface with Twitter. Now, a lot of people use Twitter, and there are Twitter apps out there, but you can actually have your programs interact with Twitter, and they interact with something called an API, or an Application Program Interface. Twitter has a set of rules about how you can interact with their system, their API. And different programming languages like Java, C++, C#, will have ways to interact with Twitter so that a person who's writing a program can access that. And so what we're going to be doing today, I'm going to go to a website. I'm going to go to twitter4j.org. And this is the source for our Twitter API source code. So if I click on the download here, this is actually going to access the zip file, but there's only a couple of files that we really need from here. I'll show you what they are in just a moment. So the two files that we're going to need in our lib folder, there's a jar here called Twitter4j core-404, and that's just the version number for that. When you download this, it may be a later version number, and that's okay. And this actually has all of the class files that we're going to be interacting with. So when we create objects in our program, they're going to be objects for these classes in this jar file. The second file that we're going to need, and I'm going to go to the examples folder and then the src folder in this resources, there's Twitter4j properties. And this properties folder actually has the key values that we need in order to interact with Twitter. Now, if I'm going to interact with Twitter on my account, I need to give it my key values, and you're going to have your own key values, and I'm going to talk a little bit about how to get those values in just a moment. But we're going to have these two folders, these two files in our application folder. So if you look over here, in this lib folder, I have the 4j core file, the jar file, and then I also have the Twitter4j properties file in the same folder that I have these two. Now these two files that we're going to be dealing with, the Twitter driver and the Twitterer, those you'll be able to download from my website. There'll be a link down in the description. What I want to talk about for this Twitter4j is I want to talk about the Java doc, because this tells us what we can actually do. So I'm going to open up this into a new file, and I'm going to go to the 404 Java doc. And there are several things that we want to look at here. The first thing I want to look at is the idea of a status. Now, in the Twitter parlance, a status is what's posted. So if I click on a status, you'll find that there's several things that I can find out about a status. I can find out where it was created at, in other words, the location it was created, the geolocation. I can get the ID. Keep in mind that every tweet on Twitter has a particular number that goes along with it. I can get the text of the tweet. I can get the user of the tweet. I can find out if it's been favorited, how many favorites, how many times this thing has been favorited. I can find out how many times it's been retweeted as well, getting the get retweet count here. So the nice thing about this Java doc is that it tells me all the things that I can do with this particular status. So I can find out if it's been favorited, if it's been retweeted, if it is a retweet. So I can find out a lot about that. For the user class, I can find out information about the user. In particular about the user, I can get their name. So that's going to return the name of the user, in other words, what their username is. I can get their status, which is their most recent tweet. If they posted their location on their Twitter account, I can get their location, I can get their description. Again, the API here and the Java doc tells me a lot of things about what I can get. And I'm going to be using both of these in here. The other thing that we're actually going to be using is a query, because on the Twitter website, you can search for items, and you can use your code to search as well. So you do that by creating a query object, and then you tweak different parts of it. So I can actually change the the query itself. This is the text of the query. In other words, what I'm searching for. I can make sure I get up to a certain number of tweets. I can actually find out anywhere within a particular location. Like I could find within 20 miles of a city all of the tweets that are about a particular subject. This is a very powerful tool. And it's nice that Twitter allows you to interface with its application in this way. But almost every major website does this. Facebook has an API, Instagram has an API, Snapchat has an API, eBay has an API, YouTube has an API. All of those different websites that you use have an API so that apps can be written, so that programs can be written to interact with it. So that's what we're going to be doing in today's video. So I am actually going to open up a new tab, and I'm going to go to apps.twitter.com. And it tells me that I have no current apps. This is where I would create an app, and then my program will have the keys, the values that it needs to interact with the Twitter website. I'm actually going to create a new app. Now, you may have to give Twitter some additional information. You may have to verify your email address if you haven't already done that. You may have to verify your phone number if you haven't already done that. But these are things that I've done with my Twitter account. I have to give my application a name. So I'm going to say this is Ms. Tapata's Twitter app 01. And I have to give it a description, a test of the Twitter API using Twitter4j in Java. My website, so //mistapata.com. And I don't have to do a callback URL, but this is where if I was writing an actual app, this would be something where they could click a button on the app and it would go directly to your website after it had been installed. And then I have read and I agree to the Twitter developer agreement. You need to make sure you read that before you create your Twitter application. So now I've created my Twitter application, and what's going to be really important for us is this keys and access tokens. Now, by the way, after this video has been published, these keys and access tokens won't be valid for my account, but there are secrets in here. So you need to make sure that if you're using these values, that no one else knows these values, because they could pretend to tweet as you. And so if you ever hear about people who are truly hacked, this is one way that you can hack someone, by pretending to be them and tweeting on their behalf. But I need to click on these keys and access tokens. There are 4 things that I'm looking for here. My consumer key API and my consumer secret. And then down here, I'm going to need tokens for access. I haven't authorized for my own account, but this is what actually allows me to tweet. So now I have my access token and my access secret token. And I need to put these 4 values in my Twitter4j properties folder. So here's my Twitter4j property with some older values that I tested with. So I need an access token, that's this. I'm going to copy that, and I'm going to paste it. And then I need the access token secret. I'm going to copy that and paste it. And then I need my consumer key, which was those 2 up here at the top. I need my consumer key, which is this. And I need my consumer secret, which is this one here. And of course, to quickly copy all of it, I'm just double-clicking on it to select it all, and then Control-C to copy it. So now these have been stored, saving my file, these have been stored on my instance. So now I can actually go through the program. So I want to talk a little bit about what our program is doing. So let's take a look at Twitter Driver. So this Twitter Driver, by the way, Ria Galanos is a computer science teacher at Thomas Jefferson School for Science and Technology in Virginia, and she's the one who developed this. I've tweaked it a little bit for our purposes here, but she's really done most of the legwork on this. I really appreciate all the work that she's done. And if you want to find out more about what she's done with this program, the website's at github.com/riagalanos/cs1-Twitter. And this is what we're going to be using, a slightly modified version of this, in our video today. So the whole idea behind this is that I'm going to have a print stream, which I'm going to be printing to console. And the reason I'm using a print stream here is because I could change this to a file and save to a file if I wanted to. We're going to create a Twitterer object, and that's the class that we're going to write the methods for. And we're going to be calling on the methods. So the first thing I'm going to do is create a message and tweet it out. So my message says, I'm testing out the Twitter4j API for Java. Thanks, CS Cheerleader, which is Ria's Twitter handle. You can find out more at that website. So anyone who sees the tweet that I'm getting ready to post will be able to do this. Now, by the way, I'm going to go to my Twitter account. And you'll see that I don't have any recent tweets from this. You can see where I was testing it last night and got some good stuff on there. So, and then I'm going to tell my object to tweet out that message. The second thing I'm going to do in this program is I'm going to choose some public Twitter user's handle, and I'm going to analyze their tweets. All we're going to do is we're going to print out their tweets. So I've got a scanner that's going to read from my keyboard. I'm going to prompt the user. And then as long as they haven't typed in the word done, I'm going to handle their query. We're going to write how this gets done. And then we're going to prompt again. So this is going to be a loop that's going to prompt until the user says done. And then the third thing we're going to do is we're going to use the query idea, the search, to find all Spurs-related tweets in a 20-mile radius around San Antonio, my city, in the past day. And we're going to talk about how to do that as well. In order to do that, though, we're going to need our Twitterer class. And you'll notice up here at the top, I've got a whole bunch of import statements for what we're going to be using. Now, we talked about geolocation, we talked about query, and query results gives us the results of the query. We talked about the status, and then we have the Twitter object. This is what interfaces with Twitter. The Twitter factory actually creates a Twitter object for us. And then we have a Twitter exception, which of course, because the internet is a fickle place, we may not connect to Twitter, and therefore we may throw an exception. There's something else here which we'll talk about in just a little bit called paging. But then I've got my normal Java stuff because I may have an input-output exception. I may have a problem with my print stream. And of course, we're using some array list stuff to store our results. So in my constructor, I'm going to initialize these three instance variables. My Twitter object that I'm going to be performing tasks with, the console, which is how I'm going to be interacting with. And of course, this I could either be reading from the command line, or I could be reading from a file. And then I'm going to have an array list, or a list of type status. And this is going to keep track of all the statuses for me. So I'm going to keep track of these statuses in an instance variable that I can call later on. So let's talk about how we're going to take care of this first thing. The first thing I want to do is tweet a given message. So given a message, I want to tweet it. That's my parameter. So first thing I need to do is I need to declare a variable. So I'm going to say status gets Twitter dot update status. And I'm going to update status with my message parameter. And it's just that simple. This is the command that actually tells my Twitter object to post an update to my Twitter account. And then once I've done that, it's going to store the result in the status variable. So what I can do now is I can actually show on the screen that I did it successfully. So I'm going to system.out.println, and I'm going to say successfully updated the status to, and then I'm going to put a bracket here, plus status.getText plus, and close my bracket, put a period, and close my quote. So the purpose here is just going to send the tweet and then tell me on the command line down here that I've successfully tweeted. So I'm going to go ahead and save this. I'm going to save my Twitter driver just to make sure. And there's one other thing that we have to be aware of. Normally when I'm compiling on the command line, it's enough just to say javac, Java compile, the name of the file that we want to compile, which is twitter.java. There's going to be a problem with this, and the problem is that it has no idea what these Twitter4j stuff is that I have. because it has no idea where Twitter4j is because it's in a different folder. So I want to talk about how we're actually going to use that here. What I have to do is I have to tell it a class path. This -cp says, this is my class path. And I'm saying, look in the current folder, and then also look for lib/twitter4jcore404.jar. So I'm going to use this command to compile. And notice when I do that command, it compiles without issue. And I notice I've got some class files here. So now if I run this, so if I do the same thing but with the Java command, and I make sure that I run, oops, that's not good. Let's copy that whole line. And I do the Twitter driver class. So notice it says, I've successfully updated the status to I'm testing out the Twitter4j API for Java. Thanks, CS Cheerleader. You can find out more at this. So now if I go to my Twitter feed, scroll up to the top, and I refresh, you'll notice my tweet is now here. I just tweeted 18 seconds ago. I'm testing out the Twitter4j, and it's got a link to her website. So we have a wonderful way of doing that. Now notice that it's moved on to the second part, which we haven't written anything for, so I'm going to go ahead and stop it. And also, I'm going to go back to my driver, and I'm going to comment out this tweet because I don't want to tweet it out every time we run this program. But what we need to do now is we need to talk about, okay, how do we go about this, get all of the tweets that this Twitter user has done? And so that's what we're going to do next. That's this part 2. So this part 2, I've got 2 functions here that I'm going to do. One is going to be fetch tweets. This is actually going to get all of the tweets from that particular user and store it so that we can iterate through them in just a bit. What Twitter does is Twitter stores things in groups called pages. And what we need to do is we need to get a page at a time from Twitter, because otherwise it's going to dump so much data at us that it may be too fast for our internet connection. We may throw that Twitter exception. We may throw that IO exception. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a paging object. Paging page gets new paging. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to say from 1 to 200, basically saying that I'm going to be getting 200 tweets at a time. Once I've done the 200 tweets, I'm going to set up a loop here. I'm just going to say int p gets 1, and then while p is less than or equal to 10, so I'm going to get about 2,000 tweets, I'm going to page.setPage p. In other words, this is going to be the first page, or the second page, or the third page, or so forth. And I'm going to say statuses.addAll. And that's going to go to the status list that we created up here. And it's going to add everything that I'm passing it. So in other words, this Twitter.getUserTimeline, this is going to get everything from that user with that particular handle on that particular page. So this loop is going to iterate through, and I need to make sure I actually do a p++ in here. It's going to set a page in my Twitter account, and it's going to get all the tweets. So I'm going to get the first 200 tweets, and I'm going to store them in my array list. Then I'm going to get the next 200 tweets and store them in my array list. And I'm going to keep doing this until I've gotten 2,000 tweets all stored in my array list. Now I assure you, I don't have 2,000 tweets. I think I have, what, about 1,000 something? I have 1,034 tweets. But there are people who have tens of thousands of tweets, and you don't want to do this for a huge amount of tweets. You don't want tweets from 5, 6, 7, 10 years ago, although you certainly could get them. The other thing you need to realize is that it's going to get the tweets from the top down. In other words, the first tweet that I get is going to be the tweet that I just made. So I need to make sure that when I go through my array list, I have to go from the end to the beginning. I need to go through my array list backwards. So in this top method, this is the one that actually has to handle the query. This is the one that's actually going to go through and print out the results on our screen. So first thing I'm going to do is statuses.clear. Keep in mind that we have a loop set up that is going to ask for multiple users, one after the other. And the thing is, I want to make sure that that whole array list has been cleared before I try and put new tweets in there. Once I've done that, I'm going to call on my fetch tweets for that particular handle. And keep in mind, that calls the method we just wrote. So that's going to go out to the internet, that's going to get all their tweets, and it's going to store it in our array list. And now what I want to do is I want to go backwards through my array list. So I'm going to say int counter gets statuses.size. And then while counter is greater than 0, I want to go through this list and say counter minus minus. Because remember, if I have 10 objects in my list, my last index number is 9. That's what I want to get. So I want to subtract first, and then I want a system.out.println. And I'm going to say tweet number, and then I'm going to add the counter. And then I'm going to say what that status was. Plus, and it's going to be statuses.get, whatever is that counter. And of course, that's going to get a status because this array list is an array list of statuses. From that status, I want to get text. And what this is going to do is it's going to get through every one of those tweets in the array list and print them out on the screen. So what I'm doing is I'm clearing my array list from any prior tweets, getting the tweets, and then iterating through the array list from top to bottom and printing them on the screen. So I'm going to save this. I'm going to make sure that I've saved my Twitter driver. I'm going to compile using the javac command. Where is it? My screen's a mess. Let's clear. So I'm going to compile using the javac command. It compiles. And then I'm going to run java command. It says, please enter a handle. Do not include the @ symbol or hit done to quit. So I'm going to do Mistapada. And it takes a while to load all of these tweets, but not as long as you think. So notice the very top tweet number 0 is my most recent tweet. I'm setting a Twitter API driver, thanks CS Cheerleader. But if you look, the prior one's a tweet from David Snyder, which is what I've got here. It's a retweet from David Snyder. So this goes through, and it'll go all the way back to all of my tweets dating back, my goodness, years. Whatever my previous 2,000 tweets have been. So what's nice about this, and of course I can choose another Twitter handle. Let's go ahead and say Ubuntu, which is one of the websites that I like to use. That's the operating system I'm using right now. And this will go through and get all the tweets from Ubuntu, the past 2,000 tweets that they've done. And there we go. So you see, I can get a whole bunch of different tweets from any account that I want. I'm going to go ahead and hit done right now to get out of that loop. Part 3. Part 3, we want to find all Spurs-related tweets in a 20-mile radius around San Antonio. That sounds like a very complicated task, but because I have access to the API, it's very simple. I just need to set the parameters for my query and then get the results for my query. And that's what we're going to do here. So in this essay query, I'm going to have a search term that I'm going to be looking for. The first thing I'm going to do is create a query object. And the parameter is going to be whatever my search term is. Now keep in mind, I can change the search term later, and that's okay, because we talked about set term as one of the options we have. If I look in my query Java doc, I can actually, where was it? I can set query here, and that would actually change the query term. So that's something that I can do. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to set the count, because I don't want to get every search. I just want to get the most recent 100 searches. And I want everything around San Antonio. Now, I've actually figured out the latitude and longitude for San Antonio. 29.4241 degrees north, 98.4936 degrees west. So I'm going to say query dot set geocode. And I'm going to create a new geolocation at 29.4241 degrees north, and because west is to the left of 0 degrees, where the prime meridian is, negative 98.4936 degrees west. I want to do it within, and that's going to be my geolocation. I want to do within 20 miles, and I'm going to use query.miles. Now, if I wanted to use kilometers, I would put query.kilometers. If I wanted to do feet, I could do everything within 5,000 feet of a particular location. And this is going to get all of the tweets where the person is said that they want their location attached to their tweet. Now, if they don't have their location attached to the tweet, I'm not going to get them. But a lot of people do that because they like to check in at different places. And I'm going to do query.setSince. And I want everything that's happened in the past 24 hours. Well, today's Valentine's Day. Happy Valentine's Day. So I'm going to set my string to 2018-02-13, year, month, and day. All right. So that sets up my query. And now I want to make my query. But remember, my query could throw an exception. So I'm actually going to put everything in a try-catch block. So I'm going to say try the following. I'm going to try to get the query result. This is going to be twitter.search for that query. And then I'm going to go through this result. This result is a query result, and there's statuses in here. There's going to be a list of statuses that I can go through. So int counter gets 0, and then system.out.println, and I can tell you how many tweets were here. Actually, I don't want count. I want result.getTweets.size. So my array list is called result.getTweets, and that's what I'm actually going to go through here. So I'm going to set up an iterator loop. So for status tweet in result.getTweets. And I'm going to go through here and I'm going to say counter ++, basically keeping track of each tweet. And I'm going to system.out.println that particular tweet. So this is going to be tweet number plus counter. And then say colon. And I'm going to tell you who did it. So I'm going to put the @ in front of here. And I'm going to do tweet.getUser. Remember, we talked about how getUser will tell me who was the tweeter. .getName. Scroll that up a little bit so you can see it. Plus, and I'm going to continue on the next line, tweeted. And I'm going to escape a quote. And then I'm going to add tweet.getText. And then I'm going to escape the close quote, then close my quote, then close my system out println. So the idea here is that I'm going to go through this list and I'm going to print out every tweet by their number, which number it is in my tweet, who the person was, I'm going to get their name, and what they tweeted, I'm going to get their text. Now, as I mentioned, because I'm dealing with the internet, I may end up getting a Twitter exception. And if I get a Twitter exception, I just want to know what the result is. So I'm going to say e.print stack trace. And then once I've done that, I'm just going to system out print line, just to make sure that I've got a brand new line here. So this should make the query for that particular term we're searching for. Make sure I only have 100 of them. Make sure they're within 20 miles of San Antonio. Make sure they are all in the past 24 hours. I'm going to get the result. I'm going to get the tweets from there. That's going to be stored in a list. And for each tweet in that list, I'm going to get the username and what they tweeted. So I'm going to save that. I'm going to go to my Twitter driver and I'm going to comment out all of the problem 2 stuff. Arrow keys, they're wonderful. And so here, my Big Bird query is going to just query Spurs. So I'm going to save that. We're going to compile. No obvious typos, and run. And so what this should do is this should give me the last 100 tweets within San Antonio about the Spurs. And what you'll notice is that Spurs has to show up in every one of these tweets, and you'll see that they do. And all of these tweets are within the past day. APIs, application program interfaces, are a wonderful way to interact with websites, web services. Sometimes you can even interact with proprietary file types like Office documents. Knowing how to work with an API, how to load the particular libraries like we did at the very top, making sure we know how to load the libraries so that we have access to all of these commands, making sure that we know from the Java docs what functions we have, what methods are available to use. Those all make our lives a lot easier. So once again, this is Mr. Potter. Thank you for watching. Have a great day.